The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network.
Sexy lady who walks around without being shady, who knows her values, who's gone through trials. Her smiles are captured from mouth to mouth. It's not the size of her thighs she worries about, but the pride she thrives to keep that drive. That cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist. Ladies, can you feel me? That cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist.
Hey guys, what's up? It is your girl Tasha, known to the world as Tasha Carpenter, but everybody calls me your girl Tasha because when you hang with me, what? It is like you are hanging with your girl. And y'all know my favorite word is BAM, because I'm always being authentically me. And if I got to be authentic, Lord have mercy, I got this phone thing in my head. This not even supposed to be on my neck. Let me take this off before somebody give me a call. But look, I have got to be authentic when it comes to these elections. Y'all know 2020 is an election year, and I'm always talking to you guys about your need to make sure that you are an educated voter when you go out to the polls. I don't want y'all going to polls and just be like, ooh, this name sound good, this name don't sound good, and playing all these games to determine who you're going to cast your vote for. Casting your ballot is very, very important. And today, guys, in the studio, I have for you another candidate. She is running for a congressional candidate space for District 5 against Steny Hoyer. Okay? Congresswoman potential in the studio today is Miss Mikayla Wilkes. And we're going to open up to her. Hey, Mikayla.
Hey, thank you for having me.
How you doing? I had sat up there and had that thing in my ear and going to get me stumbling in here. But that's what I do. That's why y'all love me, right? It don't even make any kind of difference. So, you're here. A lot of people have no idea that Congressman Hoyer even has an opponent, okay?
Yes.
I did a little bit of experiment. It irritated some people, and some of you guys are tuning in, and it's okay, tune on in. Y'all was irritated because I put up a post and said, do you know who this is? And yes, everybody knew who Congressman Steny Hoyer was, but when I responded, his opponent, Miss Mikayla Wilkes, will be on my show Monday, y'all had no idea that he even had an opponent. And that's what happens. You go to the polls, you see names on the ballot that you had no idea was going to be there, and just because of the only name that you know, you cast your vote. Well, today is about you listening to Mikayla and her platform and see whether or not she deserves your vote over Congressman Hoyer. I don't endorse anyone, but today I'm going to be listening attentively too, because I am a constituent in District 5 as well. So I need to know, who is it that I should cast my vote for? So with that being said, I need you to tell me about who is Mikayla Wilkes, the person. Every candidate comes on here, I want to know, who are you as the person? So talk to our audience.
Yeah, so I am an activist, I am a student, I am a mother. I'm someone who got involved in politics not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I had to. Just seeing the injustices of our current political system, how people are forced to live in poverty, and just seeing how people are going out without health care, without housing, without jobs that are paying a livable wage, and just witnessing firsthand how legislation affects us.
Could you tell me who you are?
Yes.
No, you. Leave all the politics stuff alone. I want to know, who are you?
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
As a person.
Well, as I said before, I am an activist, a mother, a student. I live in Charles County, Maryland. I've lived there pretty much almost all of my life. I was born in Washington, D.C., raised for the better part in the beginning of my life in Suitland, Maryland. And after the death of my aunt, my family uprooted to, before the death of my aunt, some of my family uprooted to Charles County, and then all of us followed afterwards. My father, he was murdered before I was born, and so my mom depended heavily on family support. And so when the majority of my family moved to Waldorf, my mother followed them. And so we just continued to grow and continued our family on to Waldorf, and I'm still there today.
And I hear you often in a lot of your literature, you reference your aunt. What did your aunt mean to you?
Oh, my aunt meant so much to me. She was kind of like my mom number two. I mean, she went on every field trip. She took me to recitals. She was the one that took me to my first play at the Kennedy Center, the Nutcracker. She started our family tradition with taking us to Disney World every year for my birthday. Since my first birthday, my birthday is July 4th on Independence Day. And so we've continued that tradition on. Even to this day, I take my kids every year to Disney World as they've done with me. But she was just someone who I looked up to. She was someone who was always there for me, always there for my mom. She allowed my mom to, take off of work so that my mother could study and go to school and get her degree in information technology so that she can provide a better life for us. And that's just the type of person that my aunt was.
Okay, so everything with you represents family.
Yes.
That's a good thing. Okay, so here we go. Now that she went ahead and left out all the politics stuff and let you, how many children do you have?
I have two, Caleb and Maddie. Caleb is 9 and Maddie is 5.
Oh, okay. I don't miss them days. Both of mine is grown. So, let's get into it.
Yes.
Okay. With regard to your campaign, we were talking about a little bit before we got started in here, that she is considered as the underdog, of course. And actually, your campaign has been described as a long shot effort to not only topple the second most powerful Democrat in the House.
Yes.
Okay? She's going against the second most powerful Democrat in the House. So I want to know from you, why are you deciding to take this challenge? What makes you want to do this?
I'm deciding to take this challenge because I feel like I have to. I feel like regular people deserve to be represented by regular people who know what it's like to live, a day in our shoes, but who can also speak to those issues and speak to solutions that we need to mitigate those issues. We absolutely deserve someone who is going to include the community in the conversations that we're having, and that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing in this campaign. Just going around, we've had over 10 town halls throughout the district this campaign cycle alone, just speaking with people, and people are enthusiastic about just having someone to just listen to them. And for so long, I felt like that person where I just want someone to listen to me. I felt that way for a very long time. Even at a young age, I was incarcerated. After the death of my aunt, actually, I was suffering from depression. And instead of getting the support that I needed, I was thrown into the criminal justice system, incarcerated for truancy, running away from home. And then my school administration and everyone knew what I was going through, but their solution to my problem was, we know what you're going through, but you need to stop, or we're going to put you in detention. And at that point, I needed rehabilitation. I needed someone to speak to. And so at a very young age, I witnessed how our criminal justice system was, and I decided that I wanted to, at that time, study psychology and work within the criminal justice system and speak to people who were potentially going through things that I had went through. But it wasn't until I became an adult and I just saw how the world was, and I saw how our current system, is being forced to live in poverty because I was on government assistance. And we see that so much today. I mean, people who are on disability assistance who, God forbid, they get a part-time job and it disqualifies them even from some disability programs, being forced to live in poverty because you need these programs to live. And so as I got older, I began to see that these issues were so much bigger than just the individuals that go through them, but it was the system that catches them when they fall. It's the system that catches us when we go through these issues. And so that's when I realized that these issues are systemic issues, and they need systemic solutions to solve these problems. And ultimately, that's when I decided I need to run for Congress, because I thought what better person than someone who's lived it? What better person than someone who sees every day how policy affects anyone, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or neither? We are all affected by policy in some way.
Okay, all right now. Guys, share and invite. Share and invite. Share and invite. We need to get this information out. Share and invite. I don't care where you are. You might know somebody who lives in this district. Make sure you get the information out. So with that being said, you said that you thought about getting involved in even when you were younger.
Yes.
Sometimes I ask people to tell me about the responsibilities of the position that they're running from, but I want to go from you to explain that, to pretend like you had the opportunity to actually create a job description for a congressman or congresswoman position. What would be the requirements that you would have listed for the responsibilities? Give me the top 5 responsibilities you think there is for a congressperson.
I think the biggest responsibility as a congressperson is to put people at the center of any legislation that you're considering. And that's totally, being involved in your community, hosting town halls throughout your community to make sure that the people that you're representing are part of the conversation. I would say another important thing when it comes to being a representative is having organizers in the center of your conversations when we're talking about policy. When you're creating policy having to do with unions, have union organizers sit at your round table. When you're having conversations about criminal justice reform, have people who are, formerly incarcerated or organizers who have done the work on the ground be a part of that conversation. For me, it's completely all about community. But it's just, for me, being a representative, the responsibilities for me is just to make sure that you're putting people first instead of corporations. Because what we see now throughout politics are politicians that take a lot of corporate money in their policy, unfortunately, tends to reflect that. I think for someone to be a good congressperson is for someone to put the needs of their constituents first and to reflect that in policy.
Okay, so you actually gave me 3 right there.
Yes.
You said you want to put people in the center
Yes.
of your campaign. You want to get organizers involved from all areas.
Yes.
And you want to make sure the message of people over corporations is communicated.
Yes.
So you got 2 more to give because I said give me 5.
You did. I would say the fourth requirement for me is to not take any corporate money because of number 3, and not putting corporations in the center of our politics instead of people, because corporate money plays a lot within our politics now, being able to buy politicians. And for me, that's a huge requirement in someone who I would want to represent me, as someone who's not going to take that corporate money and be beholden to that. I would say number 5 is be a representative that stays in your community. One of the greatest benefits of representing Maryland's 5th District is that it's so close to Washington, D.C. And so you can absolutely have time to go into your community more often than, say, a representative who, their district is in California. And so that would be something that's very important to me. It's just being accessible to the people that need you.
Okay, now a lot of people, again, don't know who you are. And it has been expressed, well, why are we going to have a young chicken coming? Somebody wrote on one of the posts, why are we going to have a young chicken come and take away a position there? So with that being said, and they also talked about the fact that, what experience does she have? So my question for you is, what political background or experience are you actually bringing to the table should you be elected?
So I actually have 2 answers to that question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Pertaining to the first part of the question, why should we have this young person come in and take this seat over? Young chicken. Why should we have this young chicken come in and take this seat, over from this person? When I hear when people say that is, Steny Hoyer has been in office for so long, he has seniority, why are we going to get rid of that seniority for someone new who doesn't have that clout? And what I always say to that is that if we elect someone other than Steny Hoyer, we can't look at what we're going to be losing. And because in my opinion, of course, because I'm running against him, I don't believe we'll be losing much. I mean, Steny Hoyer has been in office for, almost 40 years, and people in our district are still homeless. People in our district are still suffering from mental health, substance abuse issues. People in our district are still living in poverty. People in our district are working and are still homeless. And one of the big issues that I hear just from speaking with people in the community is that they feel like our current representative isn't really accessible. They try to get in touch with him, but to no avail. And so with me gaining another person other than the person that we have in office, with having a regular person in office who knows what it's like to go through the things that we go through, someone who's accessible, you're gaining that. You're gaining someone who's going to take this 100% personal, because this is not about politics for me. Politics are 100% personal for me because I recognize how it affects us every single day. I see it every single day. And I don't have a political background, but I am someone who can speak to these issues, having gone through them firsthand. And it's not just the fact that, I've hit a few bumps in the road, I've been, formerly incarcerated for essentially traffic debt. It's not the fact that, my insurance company denied me life-saving medications when I needed the most, but it's the fact that not only have I been through these things and I can speak to them, but I also have solutions to mitigate these issues, and I'm completely 100% dedicated to enacting those solutions and fighting for those solutions should I be elected to Congress.
Okay, so since you're going to do that, I'm going to jump around. Hey guys, y'all know that when I have my show, I have people submit questions to be considered. Well, I like to tell you that I didn't consider any of her questions. But that's funny that some of the topics that she's bringing up is going to make me go out of order with my questions. Since you brought up having solutions,
yes,
I noticed that on your website, you're running on 26 different issues for your platform.
Yes.
And each one of them states basically what you support. But I didn't see any mention of your plans or your solutions to put things in motion to improve them. So with that, I want to know for you, when it comes to those 26 issues, what are your top 3 priorities? Why do you support them? But also, what are your solutions to go along with them?
Yeah, so my top 3 priorities are definitely Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, and also affordable housing. And I actually speak about these things on my website if you check out the bullet points under each of these issues. And do you want to start from start to finish, like what are my plans for them?
Whatever way.
Okay.
Well, explain what each one is.
Okay.
Why you think they need to be addressed, and then what are your plans? And while you mentioning your website, tell them where they can reach you for your website.
So my website is Mikayla2020.com, spelled Mkayla. And to the first issue, Medicare for all, what that is a single payer system, and it treats healthcare as a human right, which it absolutely should be, because as it stands, 45,000 people die each year just from not having health insurance, and even more from people who do have health insurance but are underinsured or can't afford to use their insurance. So under Medicare for all, we would abolish all private health insurance, because the truth is that we don't need health insurance, we need actual health care, and that's what Medicare for all does. And under Medicare for all, currently, so we have a Medicare payroll tax, and our Medicare payroll tax is currently at 3.5%. And under Medicare for all, it would just be increased to 4% on income over $29,000 a year. And so what that ensures is that, for instance, let's say you make $15 an hour, right? So per pay period, you would pay $48 towards that Medicare payroll tax, and you would be completely covered with health care. And so this covers preventative care, primary care, vision and dental, along with mental health care, and it takes away all of out-of-pocket cost and caps prescription drugs at $200, no matter what it is. And this is something that I feel we absolutely need, because right now, under our current health system, our insurance and our health care is, heavily reliant on our employers. Whether you're employed, or, if your employer switches their insurance to something else, or, God forbid, one day you lose your job. A lot of people say, well, I have great health insurance, I like it. But some people fail to realize about that good insurance is, we think our our insurance is good. Some of us, because we have those low co-pays, you know, and you say, well, my co-pay is only $20. But then you look at your deductible, and your deductible is sometimes like $2,000, $4,000, $6,000. And so what happens is those co-pays are so low, you'll almost sometimes never meet your deductible unless you're really sick and you have to go to the doctor all the time. And for some of us, I know for my previous employment, my healthcare plan, even if I would have met my deductible, I'm still not 100% covered, and your insurance can still decide you know, not to cover a certain procedure, or not to cover a certain prescription, or not to cover a certain specialist. And people always ask, you know, well, why do we have to get rid of private insurance? The reason why private insurance needs to be rid of is because private insurance companies will continue to lobby against Medicare for All to underfund it and make it seem efficient. And we're seeing that now with the Medicare system that we have now, and people having to supplement their care with private insurance under Medicare Advantage. And when we move on to the next thing, which is a Green New Deal, I love the Green New Deal because it's basically a framework of how we are going to get to 100% renewable energy, but it also tackles poverty as well. So what the Green New Deal is, it divests us completely away from fossil fuel energy, which is hurting us, especially in our district in Brandywine, which is a very small area, and they have a cluster of about 5 power plants within residential areas, and even a few about 2 to 3 miles away from elementary schools. And that's a huge concern, and it's a huge issue not only for our health but for climate change as well. And so with the Green New Deal, it's going to bring jobs because we're going to invest in new clean jobs to bring to the district. Is going to invest in public transportation, which in our district, in District 5, especially in the southern part of the district, public transportation is a very huge issue, especially for me. I live in Waldorf, and I know from speaking with people in Charles County, Calvert County, St. Mary's County, public transportation is really big because a lot of us travel outside of the county for work, like to Virginia or Washington, D.C., in which that also helps to contribute more to our carbon footprint because a huge part of our carbon footprint comes from sitting in traffic. It comes from us commuting back and forth to work every day. And so we just want to make the lives of people easier with the Green New Deal, bringing new jobs to the district. It also comes with the federal jobs guarantee. And to explain what a federal jobs guarantee is, it just means that jobs will be tailored to who need them. So if you need a job, you will essentially have one. The Green New Deal is projected to create 20 million jobs throughout the country, which is just astounding to me, all the while getting us to 100% renewable energy. And then when we talk about affordable housing, I actually have a great plan for affordable housing. So I believe in something that is called a homes guarantee. And the homes guarantee is a combination of national rent control along with investing in public social housing. And so under our plan, we want to give federal funds to local municipalities and counties to build these 12 million public social housing units throughout the country, while simultaneously giving these same municipality and counties federal incentives to lift zoning restrictions in order to build these housing units throughout the country. Another thing that I also plan to do is fully fund the Section 8 program because as it stands, through the Section 8 program, only 20% of the people that need the housing is actually getting it. So that means 1 out of 4 people who are eligible for this Section 8 housing are actually getting it. And the problem with that is because the program is underfunded. And to fund that program would only be $40 billion, and it could essentially end homelessness.
Okay, so you touched base on homelessness and you touched base on transportation. Okay, well that's one of your suggestions. Now what I know, in 2018 during elections, I had multiple people with you being a resident of Charles County. One of the hot topics, depending on who came on, whether it was somebody that was running for a commissioner position, somebody running for Congress, or whatever position, is that a lot of people had questions about how do we go about, specifically in your community, improving transportation in and out of Charles County, as well as improving the homeless problem there, especially looking at the homeless tent that's behind the Walmart and things down there. So what is your answer to that? Because that was a question in 2018 and it still is a question today.
So my question to deal with the homelessness is definitely the homes guarantee and getting those public social housing units built, along with fully funding that Section 8 program to make sure that everyone is eligible for Section 8 gets it. Because the problem isn't the eligibility. Pretty much a lot of people, the majority of people who are eligible for Section 8, the majority of people that need Section 8, they are eligible for it. But the reason why they can't get that assistance is because the program is underfunded. And so we have those tent communities because of lack of resources. And we have certain things like shelters, but those resources are really limited. And so what we need to do is enact that homes guarantee and get those affordable housing units built. What we need to do is fully fund the Section 8 program. But what we also need to do is provide jobs, especially in Charles County. When we're talking about the homeless population in Charles County and having to do with transportation, jobs that pay livable wages in our district, specifically Charles County, are very slim. And so it's all about having jobs where we live so that we can afford to live in the areas that we work in, which is a huge issue. That's why a lot of us do commute outside of the county to Washington, D.C. or Virginia. And it's pretty much why a lot of us work, in the government and things like that, because there are very little jobs that pay a livable wage. But even if we do have jobs that pay like $15 an hour, the median rent for our district, for our area, is like $1,500. And so if you aren't making enough money to even afford, a 1-bedroom, then you can have a job and still be homeless. And that's why I say all of these issues are completely interconnected. You can't talk about one without talking about the other. Like, we can't talk about housing without talking about jobs, and we can't talk about transportation without talking about jobs. But our transportation system, specifically in Charles County, definitely needs to be improved. We currently have a system called Van Go, which can be very unreliable and very inefficient sometimes. And so we definitely need to invest more.
What is Van Go?
So Van Go is the
guy that paints.
Van Go is the bus system that we have in Charles County. They're little small white buses, and we always like to joke and say,
I be down in St. Charles all the time. I've never seen no bus in Charles County. That's on here making up stuff.
But you know what? That is the fact that you're up and down in Charles County and at the mall all the time and have never seen a Van Go bus is exactly the problem, because they exist, but they're unreliable. That's how slow they run, that you barely ever see them. But that's why we need to invest into the public transportation system. When you go to certain parts of D.C., you see buses, every 20 minutes sometimes, every 10 minutes sometimes. But our public transportation system in Southern Maryland is just completely unreliable, so much that the people that live there and the people that are there frequently don't even see them when they come.
She making up stuff on here, guys. But look, some of you guys have never tuned into Hanging with your girl Tasha, and y'all see me maneuvering around, messing with Mikayla's phone as well as my phone and also my iPad, okay? What I do is I try to interact with you in the chat. I have said make sure that you share and invite and start a watch party if you can. Also, if you have questions and you want to call in, or you have comments and you want to call in, you can call right in here on the number that's up on the screen behind us, 301-429-9247. And if you put comments in the chat or questions, I will address them. So while I'm here, thank you to the regular viewers that are tuning in. I see you, Dr. Bradley. I see you, April. I see you, Casey. I see you, Chicago, Terrence. I see Nigeria. All y'all, hello, hello, hello. Over here with Mikayla, you have Manny Fingers. As well, Sylvia Carver saying, I love you. Sharon is so proud of you. And also, Janet Carver, they all are sending their loves to you. We have a question coming from Waldorf area, Charles County area, from Mr. Derek Terry. He wants to know, what will you do for veterans that Congressman Hoyer is not doing or has tried to do?
Yeah, I think that what we need to do with veterans is just make sure that veterans are taken care of when they come home. It is my feeling that our veterans do a lot for us, and when they come home, I feel like they're forgotten. We definitely need to be helping veterans out, for one, with healthcare and strengthening the VA and making the VA more accessible, especially in Southern Maryland, so that people aren't having to travel, 45 minutes or an hour away to get that care. We also need to be assisting them with mental health care, with housing, with jobs. We just need to make sure that we're assisting them when they're coming home, and that we're not just dumping them away and forgetting about them, because they are, essential to our community. They've done so much for this country and for us. And thank you for your service if you are a veteran.
Okay, all right. Now, Terrence Coleman from Chicago says, I'm not in Maryland, but I think I like her. And Eric Fry said, girl, you're going to win this thing, okay? So that's coming from the chat. Again, you can call in with your questions on 301-429-9247. Now, with you talking about a livable wage as being one of the concerns for the reason for problems and why people don't stay within their own communities and tend to travel out somewhere else to get jobs, I think that specifically ties in with one of my questions about the fact that there has been a significant increase in women becoming the primary breadwinners in their houses, okay? And, of course, you know that all the time we're trying to fight to close the gap with equal pay for equal work. So, as a woman, I want you to tell me, what unique ideas do you have about continuing to close the gap and even speeding up getting that gap closed? What unique ideas? Because I know Congressman Hoyer has things that he has worked on it in support of this, but what is it that you bring to the table that's unique from his platform when it comes to closing this gap?
Yeah, so the income inequality gap definitely should be closed. I support Congressman Hoyer's measures on ensuring that there is equal pay for equal work. But I also think that there needs to be some type of oversight to make sure that this is actually being implemented. And when I say that, I think that these corporations or these companies need to be held accountable should it be found that they are not going within the guidelines of paying equal pay for equal work, such as definitely fining them, to make sure that they are held accountable. To continue that on, as you said, what are we going to do to continue to close that gap is that oversight committee and making sure that that this is actually being carried on, because we can implement stuff like this, but if corporations or these companies don't follow it, then what's going to happen to them if they don't? They should absolutely pay the price for doing so. And once we enact that legislation to make sure that we do get equal pay for equal work, it should definitely be illegal for companies to pay women less than they pay men.
Okay, all right. So, guys, with that being said, we're at that 30-minute mark, and I'm going to take this moment to go ahead and go over to a commercial break, and we'll see you guys on the flip side.
I didn't think that I would be where I am today. Chances are that I should be unemployed, in jail, or probably even worse. I'm running for Congress for Maryland's 5th District, but getting here has definitely not been easy. When I was 15, I was placed in juvenile detention facilities for running away from home. There was even one instance where a guard threatened to hold me down and cut my braids out if I didn't cut them out myself. I was even jailed for driving on a suspended license. I was 7 months pregnant, living paycheck to paycheck. I couldn't afford to pay all my tickets and court fees, and I had no choice but to drive or I'd lose my job. We need a criminal justice system that offers rehabilitation instead of exploitation. This is why I want to end cash bail. I want to end the failed war on drugs, and I want to make sure that pregnant women are treated fairly in prison. And I also want to get rid of the predatory rates that prisoners and their families are forced to pay in order to speak to their loved ones. Families shouldn't have to choose between putting food on the table and making a phone call to talk to one of their loved ones. Our representation is so out of touch with the people's needs. Even worse, they're funded by those who profit off our most vulnerable. Check out the rest of my platform online because we've got a lot of work to do. I'm Mikayla Wilkes, and I'm running as who I am for who we are. Our healthcare system is completely broken. The cost of insulin is so high that 1 in 4 people cannot afford a sufficient amount of medication. One of those people is my cousin Nish.
I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 18 months old. Due to the lack of affordability of insulin, doctor's visits, and testing supplies. I am now vision impaired. There are people who even die from lack of insulin. I did not ask for this to happen to me, and I hope that we can create a reality where this doesn't happen to anyone else.
I'm running for Congress in Maryland's 5th District because I believe that healthcare is a human right. Medicare for all would ensure that everyone can afford the care that they need, and most importantly, life-saving medications. The obstacle that we have to making this happen are the policymakers that accept millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry. I'm not taking any money from any corporate PACs. We're going to make this happen, and we're going to make it happen with people like you. I'm Mikayla Wilkes, and I'm running for a future where stories like Nisha's are no longer possible.
Hello and welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is another opportunity for you to become educated about one of our candidates coming to us from Maryland Congressional 5th District, Miss Mikayla Wilkes. During the commercial break, you saw her passion talking about the Medicare for all, as well as talking about the criminal justice system. Now, on Mikayla's website, guys, I saw, let me see, what did it say? On your website, you stated that it's a time for a new era in the American criminal justice system, right? I don't know if you mentioned that in the video. I forgot what she talked about in the video. I know you talked about you're going through incarceration and things like that since a juvenile when you got older, stupid stuff with speeding tickets. I wish I would get locked up over a speeding ticket. Anywho, but with regards to that, what exactly does it mean? It's time for a new era in the American criminal justice system. And within your plan, what ideas do you have to reduce the tendencies of convicted criminals being reincarcerated?
Yeah, so when I say it's a new era for the criminal justice system, it basically means that right now we don't have a criminal justice system centered around justice. Our current criminal justice system is centered around just simply incarcerating people. And it's the reason why people who suffer from substance abuse, are incarcerated. If you get charged with, possession of heroin or crack for the 5th time, and the solution every time is jail time, that's not working. You need treatment. People need help that are going through these issues. They don't need jail time. And so my vision for an actual criminal justice system is one that's based on rehabilitation instead of exploitation, which is what our current criminal justice system entails. The majority of people that are incarcerated, I'll say that again, are people who have not even been convicted of a crime, but they are people that are incarcerated because they simply cannot afford their freedom. And it is due to the cash bail system. And as our law says, you are innocent until proven guilty. But people are incarcerated for years sometimes because they can't afford bail money. And it causes them to lose jobs, homes, custody of their children, sometimes even credibility within their community. And those are things that need to be changed, abolishing the cash bail system so that, our freedom doesn't depend on if we can pay for it. Also ending the predatory phone rates. When you're incarcerated.
I'm sorry. I thought back to you. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna tell you a story. Okay. Go ahead.
But ending the predatory phone rates. That people are forced to pay, when you're incarcerated. People are paying like $20, sometimes over $20 to talk on the phone to family members. And even though this money, for the most part, goes to a third party, but what happens is these jails and detention centers, they get kickbacks off of that. So they're making money off of that, which also goes to my third point of abolishing for-profit prisons, because people should not be profiting off of people being incarcerated. I mean, that it's a high business. Incarceration is a business here in America. And which it's just really sad. But to talk about how can we help those, to keep them from becoming reincarcerated, it's enacting all of these other policies. It's getting people health care that they can afford. It's getting people jobs to provide them a livable wage. It's offering them, a free higher education. It's all about improving people's circumstances. And that's not to say that there aren't, people in the world that commit crimes outside of these circumstances. But the gist of people that are incarcerated are people who succumb to their circumstances. I mean, for me, for an instance, being incarcerated because I couldn't afford to pay traffic tickets. That could have been easily avoided if I wasn't stuck working in a minimum wage job to minimum wage job, making $7.50 an hour, because that's what my employer was allowed to pay me. And so we have to talk about all these issues when we talk about the criminal justice reform.
So I started laughing when you started talking about the fees with jail. What do they call this? What do they call that thing that you pay the money to? It's a name of the system. Whatever it is, a few months ago, I was amazed to really learn about it because I had no idea about it. And it's a name for it. I can't remember. But I ended up doing a Facebook Live on my page, and I went to the website that they have for taking the fees. And she's only talking to you about fees to call your loved one. They charging postage stamps for you to sell emails. They got selfie booths. You could pay for the person to get a selfie. I mean, I sat on there and I shared the screen and went down all the things that they had available on there. If it was Valentine's Day, you get a phone, take a selfie, send it to your boo outside of the jail, and they charging you money like $10, $15 like you up in a club. And I was totally amazed with the system that it was there. So absolutely, I think that is totally a problem. And
there are even some parts of the country where they charge inmates to read books.
Wow. Okay, let's make sure that we keep you dumb, right? Charge inmates to read books. Okay, you ain't gonna have me looking for that one. She gonna have me doing a whole nother Facebook Live on my page, okay? So let's see. Today, I think that we're gonna have to jump over to like the number one news that's going on today, of course, guys, is the coronavirus. I mean, even sitting here right now, I got my sanitizer. She has her sanitizer. We done wiped down the studio. We sprayed and we've done all this other kind of stuff. Here in Maryland, early this morning, Governor Hogan doubled down on restrictions at 5 o'clock today. Matter of fact, right now we're after that. Our bars, our restaurants, our clubs, our gyms, as well as our movie theaters are shut down until further notice. So, if you were in a position of actually being in that seat today as Congressman for the 5th District, how would you grade how the situation is being addressed, and is there anything at all that you would do differently to help to calm the community and their thoughts about this? Because a lot of people, they're very fearful of this. What do you say to the people about what they need to be doing and how they should be responding to the hysteria?
Yeah, so I will say I think that Governor Hogan's his announcements that he announced today are definitely the right thing to do, and they're a step in the right direction. But I think that what we can do from this point on is just make sure that we're being safe and precautious and practicing social distancing, and as well as washing your hands, which we all should have been washing our hands anyways, but just being extra cleanly now. And to also not panic, don't over excessively shop, because, there are other people who need those resources as well. I would say, not to panic, but just to make sure that you're washing your hands and make sure that you're practicing social distancing. As far as what I would grade, how Congress is handling it now, I would give it a hard C, to be honest. I know that they just passed some legislation to make sure that people have paid leave, and that people can get free testing. But what we also need is, a universal basic income. Because families are suffering right now, because under the legislation that the House just passed, even regards to the paid leave, only about 20% of the people in the country under this legislation are going to be covered in regards to paid leave. So if you work for a small business and you work for a company that has 50 or less employees, your company is exempt from giving you paid leave. God forbid you get sick, or, if you even need to quarantine, that's income taken out of your family's pocket. If you work for a company that has 500 plus employees, which is the majority of a lot of us working, those companies are exempt too. So about 84% of the people that need assistance or that are going to need assistance aren't going to be getting it. But that's why we need, a temporary universal basic income during this pandemic of the coronavirus. But we also needed legislation to ensure that everyone is, granted sick leave for this, because it's that important. If we're going to practice social distancing, then everyone should be afforded that right to. But I think that this also shows how we were completely unprepared for something like this to happen, to be honest. But it's also an example of why we need things like Medicare for all. Because right now there aren't enough testing kits. The testing kits are expensive. And in most cases, you have to have a referral to go to the doctor. If you don't have health insurance, how are you going to pay to the doctor to even get that referral? If you get sick, how are you going to pay for that? If the Senate doesn't pass this legislation that the House is trying to pass, which they probably won't, because Mitch McConnell has called it a liberal wish list. They're putting a moratorium on eviction, on mortgage payments, on rental payments. But this just go, and also on student debt. They're putting moratoriums on having to pay that. They're suspending those. And so this just goes to show why we need, tuition-free college, why we need Medicare for all, why we need mandatory sick leave in addition to PTO when it comes to these companies, to make sure that regular working people are protected. And I mean, I guess I'm a little bit okay with the way that they're handling things, but it needs to be handled a lot better, especially with Governor Hogan's announcement today with, as you just said, closing down non-essential places. But what about those employees who work for those companies who have 500 or more employees that won't get that paid time off? Or what about those employees that work for that company that has less than 50 employees? They won't get that time off. And it just goes to show that we need this legislation. We need Medicare for all. We need a universal basic income.
Alrighty. So, Janet, you asked, what about the hotels? Are you asking if the hotels are closed? Casinos are closed. They need to close down the hotels too.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm hearing that in some countries that when it comes to quarantining, a reason why the problem is happening and where certain family members are constantly getting impacted and infected is because they're self-quarantined back at home, and they actually suggested that they go to hotels to quarantine themselves instead, to prevent family members from all contracting the virus. So I guess that's your question. Oh, and she said, Janet also asked about, well, what do you think about the rate of unemployment that's going to happen as a result of them shutting down this stuff, and how should those people be handled?
Mm-hmm. That goes back to what I was saying about enacting a universal basic income. And so I know that AOC and Tulsi Gabbard have proposed legislation for a universal basic income. And for those who aren't aware, a universal basic income is just basically what it says, a universal basic income, which means if anyone was paying attention to the presidential debates, Andrew Yang actually introduced this on the Democratic debate stage, of giving every American $1,000 per month. And that's absolutely something that we need now to make sure that people can have those resources. But the good thing is that as it pertains to rent and mortgages, they have put a moratorium on eviction. A lot of utility companies, actually Governor Hogan also stated that utilities will not be shut off as a result of not going to work due to the pandemic of the coronavirus. But as far as unemployment, definitely a universal basic income to give those households, that extra leg up that they can stand on during this time.
Okay, so she graded the response to the coronavirus as a hard C. So let me put you in a teacher position again.
Yes.
How do you rate the growth of our economy and efforts to expand the economic opportunity to more people? And what would be your focus in supporting those efforts?
Mm-hmm. I would give that a C as well. When we're talking about our economy, and as far as expanding that to other people, because we were talking about earlier, a livable wage. providing people with jobs. And they, for so long we've heard that the wealth is going to trickle down. It ain't trickled down yet because it hasn't, people are still struggling, so it hasn't trickled down. We need an economy that's going to grow from the ground up, the people first. The corporations have already had all the money. It's not trickling down to us. They're keeping it, and they're keeping it away from us, and they're keeping it from themselves, and it's greed. But we definitely should focus on an economy that puts people first, because, as I've said before, the wealth is not trickling down, and they keep telling us that it's going to trickle down, and it's not doing that, so it's time to try something new.
Okay, you are more than welcome, Janet. Again, guys, you have the opportunity. Y'all being awfully quiet. Usually phones ring. Phones ring. She must be answering all your questions. Y'all have no questions. 301-429-9247. 301-429-9247 if you want to call in. So tell me something. My understanding that the purpose of a slogan is for basically when it comes to campaigning or a candidate using a slogan, the purpose of a slogan is to basically show what's different about you compared to your competitor. Now, in your slogan, I think what I saw on your page, with you promoting yourself versus what your competitor is promoting, and you said it in the video that we played during the commercial too. You said, I'm running for who I am, for who we are. I'm running for who I am, for who we are. So what I want to know is, what differences are you trying to highlight between yourself and Congressman Steny Hoyer through your slogan?
Yeah, so our slogan is, I'm running as who I am for who we are. But our main slogan is, a vote for me is a vote for us. But they both coincide with each other, because my story is not just my story. It's our story. And regardless if you've been through specifically what I've been through or not, we each, as regular people, even your girl Tasha, we all have been impacted by policy in some way, shape, or form. And my slogan, it says that. I'm running as who I am because of who we are. Because it's us. This campaign is so much more bigger than me. This campaign is about us. It's about a movement. It's about putting regular people first. It's about making sure that people have housing, healthcare, education, jobs. It's about making sure that we have a criminal justice system that's actually centered around justice. It's just about putting regular people first, about putting people first, period, instead of corporations, which is what we have been seeing for so very long. And a lot of that comes from people not knowing exactly the state of our current politics. But I am here to be that person. I am here to be that regular person, because I am that. And I want to be that voice for our community. I don't even look at myself as a politician. I look at myself as an activist that just wants to speak up for the people in my community. As I've said before, I'm not running for Congress because I want to. I'm running for Congress because I honestly felt like I had to, because we need actual transformative change. And so when I say I'm running as who I am because of who we are, it's because my story is all of our stories.
Well, did y'all hear that?
Didn't mean to be sassy, but I just get passionate.
Look, she got real sassy with that thing. She didn't even know that question was coming, but she got real passionate. Ain't nothing wrong with being passionate, sassy. She got passionate about that. So within that, still go a little bit deeper for me into, let me give you a thank you from somebody in the chat. Veronica Carver says, I'm just checking into this chat. Thank you for supporting a transportation system in Charles County. It's long overdue conversation. We pay our taxes too, but Congress Hoyer spends our tax money around the other end of the beltway, and she is tired of it. Okay, and J.B. Pittman said amen to that thing about greed, and it's about time that somebody start talking about that stuff. But going a little bit, dialing down a little bit more. That's not the word I'm looking for. Here, going out here. Whatever. Getting into it a little bit more. What are the differences besides the fact that you are a regular person and you don't consider yourself as a politician, what are the differences between you and Congressman Hoyer?
Oh, yeah. So, to get into that, one of the huge differences is that I do not take any corporate money. Congressman Hoyer has taken over $1 million from the pharmaceutical and insurance companies. He is someone who's against Medicare for all. And not only is he against it, he actively is working, he's actively working against it. He's against the Green New Deal, which would invest into our public transportation, especially in Southern Maryland. He's someone who does not support any type of progressive legislation. And contrary to the beliefs, it's not because, it won't pass, or, it doesn't make sense, or, it's too radical. But you can always follow the money from your congressperson. There's a website called opensecrets.org. It's either opensecrets.org or opensecrets.com, and it will tell you where your congressperson is getting their money from. And if you take that and you look at their legislation, it reflects that. I mean, people talk about Mitch McConnell's graveyard, but what about Steny Hoyer's graveyard? Steny Hoyer has consistently blocked progressive legislation from even being voted on. And that's how he keeps floating, he keeps afloat, because it's like people don't know his stance on the issues because he won't put it on the floor to vote. So you can't say that he voted against it because he won't even put it out for a vote on the floor. And when we talk about someone like me, I'm not beholden to corporate interests. I'm beholden to the interests of the people, because as I said, this is 100% personal for me. And that's why I get so passionate when I talk about these issues, because every day I see people in my community facing them. And it's just heartbreaking that we have, people in office that we trust, even if we didn't vote for them. Their job is to represent us. And when you don't represent us, your seat is not safe. And I would say that is one of the hugest differences between me and Steny Hoyer, is that I'm not beholden to corporate interests. I'm only beholden to the interests of the people in my community.
So somebody said, well, your girl Tasha, I think she just gave a BAM response. BAM, guys, is my favorite word, being authentically me. They said she gave a BAM response on that other thing. With that being said, you popped in my mind. Again, with that little post that I put up of Steny Hoyer's, I also point out that his opponent was coming on here, and you actually have been trying to seek a debate with him.
Yes.
Give that little bit story, because y'all, like I told you, I don't have nothing to do with the debate. So don't be trying to jump on me and get in my inbox some of those stuff, because I will bam you out of my inbox and block you. But anyway, back to Mikayla. What's going on with the whole request for a debate with Mr. Hoyer?
Yeah, so
Congressman Hoyer.
I've requested a debate with with Congressman Hoyer. The Washington Post has agreed to moderate the debate. We've had churches, we've had organizations in the community, people who have friendly relationships with him, people who have hosted him, people who have gave him a platform to speak on, have agreed to host this debate. Steny Hoyer has refused to debate us. I've called his office almost every day. We've had volunteers within the district call his office. We've had regular constituents in the district call his office to demand a debate. But he will not, either he won't respond, and he had a town hall, actually, I believe it was in either January or February, where a constituent in the district asked Congressman Hoyer if he would debate his opponent, me, Mikayla Wilkes. Congressman Hoyer said, and I quote, somewhat, not all the way quote, but pretty much a quote, that he has no intentions on debating me because anyone can walk up to him in a grocery store while he's grocery shopping and talk to him about the issues. And his other response was, there's no confusion on where Steny Hoyer stands on the issues. And there's definitely no confusion where he stands on the issues, because other than that, I wouldn't be running for Congress right now.
Okay, so some of you were saying, what does she think? Don't she know that Congressman Hoyer is busy? Do you think that he's supposed to just drop his time and stuff? And I responded, I'm pretty sure whatever time Mr. Hoyer said that he was available, I'm pretty sure that Miss Mikayla would make herself available to him on his time. So it's not a matter of time. So y'all better watch when y'all trying to come at me with y'all comments. I ain't the one.
And I've even asked him, when we sent him the request to debate, we sent it during his in-district work period in times that he's supposed to be in the community to make it easier for him as well.
And I surely did say ain't. And Eric Fryer says, I go to my grocery store almost every week. There's hardly a time I go to the grocery store and someone doesn't come up and talk to me. I think that there's not going to be any confusion in the voters' mind about where Steny Hoyer stands on the issues. Oh, Mr. Fryer dropped the quote. Oh, he put that in quotations. He dropped the quote. And he says the bottom line is he's afraid of you, and he should be, because Mikayla is winning in 2020. Now, we only got a couple of more minutes left, but I still have a few more questions here for you. Oh, and before I get out there, understand, guys, of course we got this coronavirus going on, but it has been popping up on the screen in the corner. I want you to understand that in Maryland, we have our early voting for the primary election. It's actually Thursday, April 16, 2020 through Thursday, April 23rd, 2020, and the polls are open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. at that time. And then, of course, you have the regular primary election on April 28th, 2020 from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now, me being a chief election judge for Prince George's County, I'm going to tell you, you better go ahead and use them early voting days. Don't be coming out there acting all crazy on April 28th if you're in my polling district, because I ain't going to be listening to you. I'll be like, yeah, how many other days you going to vote? You better sit here and wait and go on and be late for work today. Going on Saturday when you off. But anyway, look. You mentioned that you have 2 children, and what was it, ages 9 and 5?
Yes.
As a single mother of 2, and also you were a student, correct?
Yes.
How are you planning on balancing being with your congressional duties and also maintaining the accessibility? Because you talked earlier about accessibility to your constituents being the circle that you want to go around with your campaign. How are you going to maintain that?
Yeah, so for one, I have a very supportive family that doesn't live far from me, and they are always there for me, especially if I have to do anything campaign related. But they've always been there for me ever since I've had my children, to watch them. I mean, they're watching them today. And so I think it all comes from just having strong support. And I will be that parent, you know, if my kids can be with me while I'm in my office, they will be there with me. I know Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, she frequently has her kids in the office with her. But yeah, my kids are a part of the community too. I mean, if I have to host a town hall and my kids have to be sitting in the front row, that'll be happening. But I definitely think, I mean, everything needs a shift for balance. But I've already been experiencing that while running for office with having to balance and multitask. But the biggest thing is just having that strong support system.
Alrighty, now speaking of support systems, going right in line, like my last questions, I'm going to combine them together. How can people support you in your campaign efforts and gain more information? Well, we already talked about gaining more information about you. Give them the website one more time real quick.
Mikayla2020.com.
And with supporting your campaign, telling them how they can do it. Also, do you have any upcoming events that are going to be happening public that's under 50 people?
Yeah, so we're not going to have any events. We had actually a huge rally scheduled for April 4th, but it was canceled due to the coronavirus outbreak. But if anyone would like to help us out, as I've said before, we're grassroots. We don't take corporate money, and this is essentially a race of people versus money, but we still need money. So definitely, if you can make a contribution to our campaign, that would be lovely. We've raised already almost $200,000. Our average contribution is $20.20. So if you can even afford to contribute $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, that will definitely help us out. Another way to help support our campaign is to spread the word, and also go to our website at Mikayla2020.com. Sign up for a shift. We've suspended door knocking right now because of the coronavirus. But if you want to help us out with phone banking, you can phone bank from your living room, you can phone bank from the bed, or you can text bank. So definitely go to our website, sign up for a shift, and we will be in contact with you so you can phone or text bank with us.
A question just dropped. Control room, forgive me. But before we go to the last question I'm going to take from the chat, Tell them your social medias, how they can find you on all platforms.
All of our social media handles are at Meet Mikayla, as in I just met your girl Tasha today, so that's at MEET Mikayla.
And Jabe Pittman says, speaking of childcare, do you have something that can help single mothers?
Absolutely. Not just single mothers, but single parents. So under our plan, we have a plan to give $300 per child under the age of 18 to all families for childcare.
All right. There you go. And you got one last minute. Take a minute. If there's anything that you think that we didn't cover that you really want to communicate to people, bottom line is why they should vote for you over your opponent.
Yeah, I would say that this is a race of people versus money. Each year, we all, as regular people, complain about how this hasn't changed, how that hasn't changed. We cannot be afraid to vote for change, because if we keep voting for the same thing over and over and over again, we're going to get the same solutions and the same problems over and over and over again. I'm not asking anyone to vote for me because I've had a few hard bumps in my life, but I'm asking for the people in Maryland's 5th District to stand with me and demand that we deserve better and demand that we are put first. And that's why I say a vote for me is a vote for us, because it isn't just my story, it's our story.
And there you have it. That is the conclusion of another Hanging with Your Girl Tasha. I thank you for coming. Oh, wait a minute. Elbow bump. Elbow bump. I thank you for coming into the studio. And guys, you know, I have some other people who are lined up. And I'm sorry, your girl Tasha, depending on what happens with this coronavirus, guys, y'all might not see me for a couple of weeks until things get back into order. So until then, I wish all you guys be safe, heed the warnings, do what you have to do. And one of my messages today during one of my Facebook Lives was to make sure that instead of focusing on negativity and conspiracy theories, focus on the positivity. Take this time to get back and get involved with your family and your friends. Pull out the Monopoly. Pull out the pen and paper, do some tic-tac-toe, get you some chalk, play some hopscotch. Let's take this time in this time of crisis to reconnect as families as we used to do. And that's the end. Talk to you guys later. Love you.
Around without being shady, who knows the values, who's gone through trials. Her smiles are captured from mouth to mouth. It's not the size of her thighs she worries about, but the pride she thrives to keep that drive. That cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist. Ladies, can you feel me?